Ever wonder what happens to your trash after you toss it? That greasy pizza box, the yogurt cup you think is recyclable, last year's iPhone charger that mysteriously stopped working. Where does it all end up? Poof, gone from your sight, never to be seen again. But here's the thing, there's no way. Every day, the world produces over 2.1 billion tons of garbage, enough to wrap around the earth 24 times if loaded into garbage trucks. New York City alone churns out 12,000 tons daily, and somehow, by morning, the streets are spotless. It's not magic, it's logistics. A massive global network moves trash faster, farther, and more expensively than most people realize. So, where does all our garbage actually go? And more importantly, what can we do about it? Let's follow the trail. It's 3 a.m. in New York City. The streets are empty, except for the rumble of garbage trucks. A line of them snakes through the boroughs, swallowing up black bags stacked on sidewalks. Side streets that were once clogged with overflowing garbage bags are suddenly clear. The smell lingers, but the mess is gone. Who waved the magic wand? No one. Just a fleet of garbage trucks, part of a $45 billion global industry, sweeping away 12,000 tons of waste before dawn. But NYC isn't alone. Mumbai's 20 million residents generate 11,000 tons daily, much of it clogging rivers and alleyways before disappearing overnight. This isn't a local problem. It's a global operation, moving trash farther, faster, and more expensively than you'd ever imagine. Right now, the world generates 2.1 billion tons of municipal waste per year. That's enough to circle the Earth 24 times if loaded into garbage trucks. And here's the kicker, by 2050, this number will skyrocket by 70%. We're not just talking about banana peels and cardboard boxes. Today's waste is a toxic cocktail of lithium-ion batteries, microplastics, and PFAS-coated takeout containers that will outlive us by centuries. Alright, let's talk about Tokyo, a city of nearly 14 million people, governed by an intricate, color-coded system. Residents are required to sort their trash into over 20 different categories, including burnable waste, kitchen scraps, paper, fabric, non-burnable waste, ceramics, rubber, metal objects, plastic containers, separated by PET bottles, hard plastics, and plastic films, different colored glass bottles, brown, clear, green, and electronics and batteries, each requiring special disposal procedures. Each district adheres to strict collection schedules, often picking up specific types of waste only once a week. Miss your collection day? Tough luck. You'll be storing your trash at home until the next cycle, which could mean rotting food waste festering in your kitchen. But hey, there's a reason for all this madness. Tokyo's landfill space is scarcer than a quiet moment in Times Square, so they incinerate over 70% of their waste, and not just any incineration. These are high-tech, futuristic facilities that filter out the bad stuff and even generate electricity. It costs a whopping $2.3 billion a year. That's $700 per ton of trash. Compared to San Francisco's $200 per ton. Ouch. And yet, even with all this next-level garbage wizardry, Tokyo's still fighting a losing battle against the trash monster. Makes you wonder if we're all just one banana peel away from a full-blown garbage apocalypse. In Stockholm, garbage trucks don't just follow the same old route every day. They're smarter than that. AI tracks traffic, road delays, and even how full each bin is, rerouting trucks in real time to make sure no time or fuel is wasted. It's like Waze, but for trash, says Stockholm waste collector Lars Holm. Meanwhile, Seoul has taken things to the next level. They've pretty much ditched garbage trucks altogether. Instead, many buildings are connected to underground pneumatic tubes that suck trash away at 40 miles per hour straight to processing centers. No overflowing dumpsters, no missed collection days, just a high-speed garbage highway right beneath the city. These innovations are undeniably impressive. But at their core, they all serve one simple purpose: making trash disappear. The problem is, trash never actually disappears. It just moves somewhere else. And that's where the real trouble begins. The journey begins with garbage trucks, a $45 billion global industry. In Tokyo, waste management feels like a military operation. Residents sort trash into over 20 categories: burnables, PET bottles, different colored glass, and even electronics. Miss your pickup? You'll hoard rotting waste for a week. This rigor keeps Tokyo's landfills operating at a cost of $2.3 billion annually. $700 per ton, compared to San Francisco's $200. Efficiency isn't optional here. In Stockholm, AI reroutes trucks in real time. The app tracks traffic delays, even how full each bin is, says driver Lars Holm. Meanwhile, Seoul skips trucks entirely, funneling trash through underground pneumatic tubes at speeds up to 40 miles per hour. These innovations are impressive, but they share one goal: making trash disappear. The real challenge begins after collection. For decades, we've been told that recycling is the answer to our waste problem. That if we just toss our plastic bottles and cardboard boxes into the blue bin, we're saving the planet. In the US, only 32% of waste actually makes it into recycling streams, and even that number is misleading. Why? Because nearly 30% of what gets collected is too contaminated to be processed. A single greasy pizza box or a coffee cup with a plastic liner can ruin an entire bale of paper, sending it straight to the landfill. People often think they're doing the right thing by tossing every plastic item into the bin, but the reality is, most plastics cost more to recycle than they're worth. Take aluminum cans, the recycling success story. Robots and sorting facilities practically fight over them because recycling aluminum saves 95% of the energy needed to produce new metal. But plastics? That's a different story. Many of those plastic containers, yogurt cups, and takeout boxes we toss in the bin aren't actually getting recycled. Instead, they end up in landfills or, worse, get shipped overseas. For decades, the US and much of the Western world had an easy solution: send it all to China. In fact, China imported 40% of America's recyclables, tons and tons of plastic, paper, and scrap metal. But in 2018, they decided they'd had enough and passed the National Sword Policy, which banned most foreign waste. Suddenly, places like the Port of Los Angeles were drowning in plastic, with nowhere to send it. So what happened? The US started redirecting that waste to other countries. Malaysia, Vietnam, Turkey, where weaker regulations allowed massive piles of plastic to fester in illegal dumps or get burned in open pits. In Kuala Lumpur, entire villages reported toxic fumes from burning American plastic waste. "We're not the world's dumpster," said Malaysian activist Yo Bi Yin. But when there's money to be made, profit trumps people. The harsh reality is that most recycling is just a global shell game. Wealthy nations ship their waste to poorer countries, where it becomes someone else's environmental disaster. And as the world wakes up to this problem, those countries are starting to shut their doors, leaving the West scrambling for solutions. Because when recycling stops being an option, there's only one place left for all the trash to go: right back where it started. When recycling fails, landfills step in. Modern sites are engineering feats: clay liners 10 feet thick, methane capture systems powering 700,000 US homes, and leachate filters trapping toxic sludge. But space is scarce. The US will need 600 new landfills by 2050. Worse, they're environmental grenades. Landfills emit 14% of global methane, a gas 80 times hotter than CO2 in its first 2 decades. Even state-of-the-art liners fail. In Michigan, PFAS chemicals from a landfill poisoned 1,500 wells. "We're burying problems, not solving them," says geologist Dr. Linda Lee. "Every landfill will leak. It's a matter of when." When landfills start bursting at the seams, our garbage doesn't just magically disappear. It takes a vacation, and not to some scenic getaway. Instead, it gets packed up, shipped overseas, and dumped on someone else's doorstep. In 2021, the US exported 1.1 billion pounds of plastic waste. A bale of plastic bottles tossed into a Los Angeles recycling bin might sail across the ocean to Malaysia, where workers, some earning as little as $5 a day, sort through the scraps by hand. The lucky plastics? They get shredded and turned into polyester for clothing in Vietnamese factories. The rest? Burned, dumped, or left to rot in illegal landfills. And it's not just plastic. Turkey is drowning in European e-waste, where workers pry copper from discarded electronics with their bare hands. Why do these countries accept our trash? Because there's money in it. Take Indonesia. The country earns $1.2 billion annually from waste imports. But the price they pay? Far higher. Pollution from these waste dumps poisons the air, water, and soil, leading to skyrocketing healthcare costs, triple what they make from the waste trade. This whole system thrives on inequality. Wealthy nations send their garbage to poorer ones, disguising it as recycling or waste management when really, it's just outsourcing the problem. One country's trash becomes another's environmental disaster. And as more nations wake up to this scam, they're starting to shut their borders to foreign garbage. Which leaves one big question. What happens when nobody wants our trash anymore? Take Denmark, where a whopping 80% of trash is incinerated, and the heat generated warms 25% of Danish homes. Sounds efficient, right? But not all incineration is created equal. In Baltimore, for example, the Wheelabrator incinerator burns waste at the expense of local communities. It spews lead, mercury, and other pollutants into the air, disproportionately affecting low-income neighborhoods. Asthma rates here are triple the national average, says activist Marvin Hayes, who has been fighting for cleaner air in the city. Burning trash might make it physically smaller, but it doesn't make it go away. Incinerators still release CO2, contributing to climate change, and produce toxic ash, which often gets dumped in communities that are already overburdened with pollution. In the US, we incinerate about 12% of our waste. But critics argue that this isn't waste management, it's pollution redistribution. Proponents claim it's a form of renewable energy. After all, it produces electricity and reduces landfill use. But whether you're for it or against it, one thing is clear. Fire might shrink our trash, but it won't solve the crisis. It's just another way of delaying the inevitable. At the end of the day, the best way to deal with waste is to create less of it in the first place. Sounds simple, right? Well, some companies, scientists, and governments are actually trying to make that happen. Take Loop, for example. Instead of single-use plastic bottles, they sell tied in stainless steel jars. When you're done, you send the jar back, they clean it, refill it, and send it out again. It's like the old-school milkman system, but for your laundry. Meanwhile, TerraCycle's recycling clubs are paying villagers in Brazil to collect things like chip bags, which normally aren't recyclable. And in Sweden, they've got landfill mining robots digging through old trash heaps to extract lithium from discarded batteries, basically turning yesterday's junk into tomorrow's tech. Governments are stepping in too. Kenya made plastic bags illegal and actually jails people for producing them. Japan has strict appliance recycling laws, meaning your old microwave doesn't just get tossed, it gets dismantled for valuable parts. California? They're forcing companies to fund the recycling of their own packaging. And the EU? By 2030, they're banning single-use plastics in hotels and cafes. No more tiny shampoo bottles or plastic coffee stirrers. But real change isn't just about bans and better recycling. It's about redesigning everything. As designer Thomas Matthews puts it, durability, repairability, true recyclability. Imagine a phone that's 90% reusable, because let's be real, if your smartphone was built to last, you wouldn't be upgrading every 2 years. The problem isn't just that we throw things away, it's that we design them to be disposable, and until we fix that, we're just finding new places to hide our mess. The issue isn't that humans are messy. It's that we built a system where disposable is easier than durable, where away is just a convenient illusion. Trash doesn't vanish. It just moves somewhere else, out of sight, out of mind. But that mindset is exactly what got us into this crisis. The fix? Smarter design, better policies, and a shift in how we think about waste. We need to tax single-use plastics to make wastefulness expensive. Invest in compostable materials that actually break down instead of lingering for centuries. Fund circular economies, where products are designed to be reused, not tossed after one use. History proves we can solve massive waste problems when we try. In 1900, horse manure was piling up in city streets, and experts feared urban life would drown in filth. But by 1920, cars and modern sewage systems had completely transformed the way we moved and managed waste. Today's garbage crisis is bigger, but the blueprint for change already exists. The question isn't if we can fix this, it's if we will. So what can you do? Start small. Cut back on single-use plastics, support companies that prioritize sustainability, and push for better waste policies in your community. Because in the end, trash isn't just a problem, it's a choice.